that 300 years of human history disappeared overnight and is still missing.
What if almost 300 years of our timeline never even happened? Sounds insane, right? But that's exactly what the phantom time hypothesis claims, that from 614 to 911 AD, those years were completely made up. According to a German historian, emperors, popes, and even Charlemagne himself might have been nothing more than clever fabrications. And get this, it might have all been part of a massive cover-up involving forged documents, fake relics, and Vatican secrets. Stay till the end, because in this video, the truth gets wilder as you listen to it. Come along. The Phantom Time Theory, a timeline that never was the Phantom Time. Hypothesis has often been described as one of the strangest and most mind-bending ideas ever proposed about human history. It was first introduced in 1991 by a German historian named Heribert Illig, who believed that nearly 3 whole centuries of our past never actually happened. He claimed that a large portion of the early Middle Ages, roughly 297 years to be exact, existed only on paper and not in reality. People who first heard about this theory were naturally skeptical. After all, how could anyone just make up centuries of history? But according to Illig, that's exactly what happened. He argued that somewhere along the line, history had been deliberately stretched, rewritten, and manipulated to serve the interests of powerful rulers. At the center of this bold claim stood an alleged conspiracy involving 3 highly influential figures: the Holy Roman Emperor Otto III, Pope Sylvester II, and possibly the Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII. Illig suggested that these rulers didn't just tweak history. He believed they strategically rewrote entire centuries so Otto III could crown himself in the grand, symbolic year 1000 AD, the perfect moment to tie his reign to the birth of Christ. The idea feels almost cinematic, doesn't it? Like a hidden chapter in humanity's timeline, quietly erased by powerful hands. And just when you think this theory can't get any stranger, it opens the door to something even darker. Keep watching till the end to find out. According to Illig, their motive was far from trivial. Being emperor at such a monumental year would not only make Otto's reign seem divinely significant, but would also strengthen his political power and authority in the eyes of his people. He wanted history itself to declare him special. And so, Illig said, the plan was set in motion. To achieve this, the conspirators supposedly advanced the calendar by 297 years, fabricating records, inventing events, and planting false evidence that later historians would unknowingly rely on. They would have needed to create chronicles of wars that never took place, rulers who never lived, and buildings that were never constructed. Imagine the scale of such a cover-up. How many scribes would have been involved? How much rewriting would have been necessary? According to Illig, it was all part of an elaborate plan to rewrite history and make Otto's empire appear to stand at the dawn of a new millennium. If this were true, one might wonder how many of the stories we were taught in school could actually be products of fiction rather than fact. The most shocking part of Illig's theory, and the one that tends to draw the most attention, is the claim that Charlemagne, the legendary emperor often referred to as the father of Europe, never even existed. Illig insisted that Charlemagne was nothing more than a myth, a completely fabricated figure created to fill in the invented centuries, the entire Carolingian dynasty, from Charlemagne's supposed rise to power in the late 700s to his coronation as emperor in the year 800, would have been nothing but a collection of made-up tales. According to this theory, the stories of his conquests, his reforms, and even his empire were all written after the fact to legitimize the false timeline. It's a claim that shocks many, considering how deeply Charlemagne's legacy runs through European history. If he never existed, what would that mean for everything built upon his name, his empire, his cultural reforms, even the very identity of medieval Europe. Illig specified that the Phantom period in question covered the years between 614 and 911 AD. In his view, everything that supposedly occurred during that time simply did not happen. If he were correct, that would mean an enormous chunk of history, nearly 300 years, would vanish. The famous Viking raids on England, they would never have taken place. Alfred the Great, the celebrated Anglo-Saxon king, he would be nothing more than a fictional character. Even the Tang dynasty in China, one of the most influential dynasties in world history, would have never existed. The early Islamic expansion, the Muslim conquest of Spain, and much of the early medieval period in Europe would all be products of pure invention. Imagine living in a world where almost everything between the fall of the Roman Empire and the dawn of the High Middle Ages was an illusion. It's a theory that makes one pause and wonder, if so many events could have been made up, how much of history can we truly trust? To support his argument, Illig pointed to what he saw as inconsistencies in archaeological evidence. He claimed that there was a surprising lack of physical remains that could be confidently dated to the years 614 to 911 AD. He also questioned the reliability of modern dating methods such as radiocarbon dating and dendrochronology, suggesting they were not as precise as scientists believed. According to him, medieval historians relied too heavily on written sources, many of which could have been forged or altered to fit the manipulated timeline. He argued that the supposed gap between the ancient world and the medieval era, the so-called Dark Ages, was artificially created by this massive historical hoax. To him, the emptiness of that period in terms of cultural and technological development was not a coincidence. It was evidence of the missing centuries. However, as with many extraordinary claims, critics were quick to respond. Historians, scientists, and archaeologists from around the world dismissed Illig's theory as implausible and lacking solid evidence. They argued that there were far too many records from different parts of the world that lined up with the supposed phantom centuries. For instance, if the years between 614 and 911 AD had truly been invented in Europe, how could the same years appear in the histories of other civilizations such as China, India, or Persia? These regions had their own independent systems of record-keeping, their own calendars, and their own written traditions. Were they also part of the same grand conspiracy? It seemed impossible. Even if a few European rulers could manipulate their local records, coordinating a lie of that magnitude across the entire world would have been beyond comprehension. After all, why would nations with no contact or interest in the Holy Roman Empire go along with a deception that benefited only Otto III? Despite being widely discredited, the phantom time hypothesis continues to intrigue people today. Some see it as a fascinating example of how easily human perception of history can be shaped by those in power, while others view it as a lesson in how conspiracy theories often arise when people look for meaning in historical gaps or inconsistencies. Whether one believes it or not, the theory invites an unsettling but thought-provoking question. How much of what we think we know about the past is based on unquestioned trust? If history can be rewritten, or if even one determined voice can make the world believe it has been, then maybe the line between truth and belief is far more fragile than we'd ever dare admit. And once you realize that, you start to wonder what else has been quietly shaped, edited, or completely hidden from us. Stay with me, because what we're about to uncover doesn't just challenge what we've been taught, it challenges what we trust. The Vatican's forbidden archives. Deep beneath the heart of Vatican City, there is said to be a place unlike any other, a quiet, dimly lit world beneath the surface, where the air itself feels heavy with history. People have long whispered about this mysterious underground realm, a place that holds not just dusty manuscripts and aging scrolls, but possibly, as many believe, the very keys to humanity's forgotten past. It is officially called the Apostolic Archive today, though for centuries it was known as the Vatican Secret Archives. The Old Latin name, Archivum Secretum, simply meant private archive, but that single word, secretum, was enough to ignite centuries of speculation and wonder. After all, when something is called secret, isn't it natural for people to imagine what exactly might be worth hiding? The archive, by all accounts, is vast beyond imagination, over 12 kilometers of shelves stacked with documents that span more than 1,000 years. It's almost impossible to picture the sheer scale of such a collection. Every letter, every parchment, every faded ink mark is a small piece of history carefully preserved in the silence of those stone chambers. Officially, it contains records of papal correspondence, state papers, and church documents, but to many curious minds around the world, that explanation feels far too simple. How could such a massive and tightly guarded repository exist merely for administrative records? Could it be that within those walls there are truths about the world that humanity was never meant to know? Over time, rumors have blossomed like vines across centuries. People began to wonder if the Vatican might hold writings older than Christianity itself, perhaps even surviving relics of civilizations long swept away by myth and time. Some stories speak of pre-Christian texts that describe ancient astronomy in ways that contradict what modern science believes. Others whisper of maps depicting continents that supposedly were not discovered until thousands of years later. And then there are the most extraordinary claims of all: manuscripts that speak of advanced civilizations existing before the Great Flood described in the Bible. Could there really have been entire worlds, complete with knowledge and technologies that humanity has long forgotten? If so, why would such knowledge be hidden away from the world? Among the most intriguing tales passed among researchers and enthusiasts is that of a collection known as Subsol Antiquo, translated as Ancient Underground. It is said to be a restricted section, a place even deeper than the already hidden halls of the archive. According to these stories, this secret collection contains documents that emit faint traces of radiation, as if the materials themselves had been touched by some ancient energy. The contents allegedly describe catastrophic wars fought with weapons far beyond what ancient humanity should have been capable of creating. There are said to be accounts of fire falling from the sky, lands turned to glass, and cities swallowed by strange light. Some believe these writings tell of cycles of destruction and rebirth, suggesting that humanity might not be living in its first age of civilization, but perhaps its fourth or fifth. Could it be possible that advanced societies once walked the earth long before recorded history began? The Vatican, of course, has its own explanations for why certain materials remain sealed. Officials have often said that many documents are simply too fragile, too disorganized, or too sensitive for public viewing until proper preservation and cataloguing are complete. To the casual listener, that seems reasonable enough. After all, ancient papers can crumble at a single touch, but skeptics have always wondered if there might be more to it than that. What if some of those fragile texts contain ideas that could shake the foundations of both faith and science? What if the true origins of humankind, religion, or civilization itself were written plainly in those forbidden pages? Even with all the official statements, the questions keep coming. Why allow access only to a handful of scholars each year? Why not make digital copies if the goal is preservation? And if there's nothing to hide, why keep so much of it locked away from the public eye? Some say the Church guards not just its past, but humanity's collective memory, protecting knowledge that might be too dangerous or too disruptive to reveal. Others believe the secrecy comes not from fear, but from a desire to maintain mystery, the kind of mystery that keeps people searching, wondering, and believing that there's always more to the story. Whatever the truth may be, the Apostolic Archive remains one of the most fascinating places on Earth, a symbol of both human curiosity and human restraint. It is a place where faith meets history, and where history sometimes feels like a riddle waiting to be solved. people continue to imagine what lies behind those locked doors. Perhaps a letter written by Christ himself, perhaps an ancient map of the world before continents shifted, or perhaps nothing more than piles of parchment that have outlived their meaning. And yet, the uncertainty only makes the mystery grow stronger. For isn't it human nature to want to uncover what's been hidden, to peel back the layers of the past and see what stories it still holds? For centuries, people have whispered about what truly lies beneath Vatican City. Not just relics or ruins, but stories so heavy they seem to bend history itself. And the strange thing, these secrets never fight for attention. They simply wait. They wait in the dark, in the cold, in the untouched corners of ancient corridors, almost as if they know the world isn't ready to meet them yet. And maybe that's why every theory feels both unbelievable and somehow deeply possible. Because if even a fraction of what insiders claim is real, then everything we think we know about faith, power, and the past might only be the surface of a much larger truth. So stay with me. Don't blink, don't skip, because what comes next might change the way you look at history forever. What if it's true? Implications of a hidden past. The implications of the phantom time theory and ancient nuclear evidence go far beyond the usual academic discussions or speculative documentaries. They reach into the very heart of what people think they know about history and human progress. When some researchers and independent thinkers first heard of these ideas, they admitted that it almost felt like science fiction. But could it be that humanity's timeline isn't as straightforward as we've been taught? Could entire centuries have been fabricated, misplaced, or perhaps erased due to catastrophic events that no one survived to remember? It's an unsettling thought, yet one that refuses to disappear because of the strange evidence scattered across different parts of the world. Some began to wonder aloud whether history had, in fact, been reset by catastrophe. If, as some fragments of ancient texts and puzzling ruins suggest, early civilizations possessed forms of advanced technology, then maybe humanity has already walked this path before. Maybe there were earlier versions of us who built thriving societies, who reached great heights in science and engineering, only to destroy it all, perhaps through wars that spiraled out of control. Could it be that mankind, time and again, brought itself to the edge of brilliance only to fall into ruin by its own hands? This could explain why, throughout history, there have been strange periods where knowledge seemed to vanish overnight. Entire systems of learning disappeared, skills were lost, and humanity found itself starting again from scratch, as though the slate had been wiped clean. When looking back at the long arc of civilization, a pattern begins to emerge, a familiar cycle of rise, fall, and forgetfulness. Civilizations grew powerful, achieved remarkable technological feats, then became arrogant, and finally collapsed. And after each collapse, the survivors struggled to piece together the fragments of their past. Some people have suggested that many of the modern inventions celebrated today might not be entirely new, but rather rediscoveries of forgotten wisdom. After all, how often do we find ourselves amazed by ancient structures or tools that seem far beyond the capabilities of their supposed time? People can't help but ask, were our ancestors truly primitive, or have we underestimated them all along? Another area that draws curiosity is the possible silence of the Church. The idea that the Vatican might possess hidden documents or artifacts that tell a different story of human origins is both fascinating and controversial. Some historians have claimed that if such evidence existed, acknowledging it would challenge long-held religious teachings about humanity's creation and divine purpose. Imagine the implications if it turned out that humanity had reached technological sophistication thousands of years before the supposed dawn of civilization. It would raise uncomfortable questions about the accuracy of sacred timelines and divine order. For the Church, some believe, staying silent might be less about deception and more about preservation, preserving faith, structure, and the narrative that has guided millions for centuries. After all, what would happen to people's belief systems if they suddenly learned that history might have been rewritten? In light of all this, the discussion stops being just about history. It becomes a question of survival and awareness. Maybe understanding these hidden stories from the past isn't just about satisfying curiosity. Maybe it's a warning. If the phantom time theory and traces of ancient nuclear events are even partly true, then history might not be a straight line of progress, but a looping circle of lessons unlearned. Humanity might have been here before, brilliant, proud and powerful, and then vanished in fire and silence. The question now is, will people finally break the cycle? Or are they simply waiting to become another forgotten chapter in the story of a planet that never seems to remember? With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment and subscribe for more content to enjoy more thrilling stories. Click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.